حي على الفلاح.
الحمد لله الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. As to what proceeds, after praising Allah the Most High, separated from His creation in a manner which befits His Majesty, with love and veneration exclusively for Him, and then requesting He the Most High to send His salah and salam upon our final Prophet and Messenger, Khatamul Anbiya wal Mursaleen, Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Qurashi alayhi salatu wassalam. We meet for the first time in this new semester of ours to study the subject known as Fiqh. The book which we are studying is known as Al-Durar Al-Bahīyyah, written by the Imam of the Ahlul Hadith of his time in Yemen, Sheikh Islam Muhammad bin Ali Ash-Showkāni, rahimahullah ta'ala, who died in the year 1250 after Hijrah. In our previous semester, we completed the first chapter, which was concerning water. And today, with the aid and assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we shall start the second chapter, which will discuss the different types of impurities. Our methodology will be as follows. The reader will read the text and its translation, and then after that we shall commence in the explanation of the text. Now, barakallahu feek. Before the reader starts, we have two different translations. One translation is by Darul Arqam, known as Comprehensive Islamic Jurisprudence, and the second translation that we have is by A. Al-Hasan, Crystalline Gems of Islamic Jurisprudence. So at times we will make a comparison between the different translations, although our subject is not to critique or to correct the translations. Our subject is to study fiqh, but sometimes due to unforeseen circumstances or out of necessity, there may be some comments that will be made if the translation is incorrect or does not give the meaning that is required. Now, so can we have the Qari to read the text in Arabic and then translations in English now?
أحسن الله إليكم. اللهم اغفر لنا ولشيخنا ولشيوخه وللسامعين أجمعين آمين. قال الإمام محمد بن علي الشوكاني في كتابه الدرر البهية في المسائل الفقهية: باب النجاسات. فصل: والنجاسات هي غائط الإنسان مطلقا وبوله إلا الذكر الرضيع ولعاب كلب وروث ودم حيض ولحم خنزير وفيما عدا ذلك خلاف والأصل الطهارة فلا ينقل عنها إلا ناقل صحيح لم يعارضه ما يساويه أو يقدم عليه. فصل. Should I continue, Sheikh?
لا خلاص هذا يكفيك. طيب هذا translation. هل عندك ترجمة؟
أحسن الله إليك. نعم Sheikh.
Which translation are you reading from?
The first one, just the one by
This one.
no, the other one.
الحسن. No?
نعم Sheikh.
Read.
أحسن الله إليكم Sheikh. Chapter 2 types. The translator says chapter 2 types of impurities. Impurities include human excrement, human urine, except the urine of a nursing male infant, dog saliva, dung, menstrual blood, and pork. Apart from those listed above, scholars have disagreed over impurities not mentioned in this text. So,
No.
I didn't read.
So water is?
So water is pure. Thus, if something does not change its purity, or if it is not mixed with impure substances, we should always assume the water is pure.
طيب. نعم. هذا هو. The next translation.
Sallallahu alaykum. The translator of Al-Durar Al-Bahīyyah says in the book Comprehensive Islamic Jurisprudence, chapter 1.2, rulings on impurities. Impurities include human defecation in the absolute sense, his urine except a breastfeeding boy, dog saliva, animal droppings, menstrual blood, flesh of swine. Any other things besides those are not agreed upon. What can be said about them is that they are to be basically regarded as pure. Nothing can make them to cease to be pure except an authentic factor not contradicted with what has an equal footing or supersedes it.
No.
Shall I continue?
طيب نعم. Continue. Explanation.
أحسن الله إليكم.
That was
Explanation.
that was the translation of the text, which is known as the matan. We call the text the matan. And now Ash-Showkāni, he wrote a text on fiqh which is known as Al-Durar Al-Bahīyyah. And then he wrote his own explanation known as Al-Durar Al-Bahīyyah. So now he's going to explain his own text. Now.
أحسن الله إليكم. Explanation. As for human defecation and urine being regarded as impurities, there are clear-cut authentic reports indicating that, and there being impurities fall within what is unreservedly accepted in the deen as that which will not be hidden from a person who researches into the evidences of the Sharia and the way of life of the era of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The fact that the two are sometimes regarded as being pure cannot rule out this fact.
حسب.
طيب.
طيب. The author, Al-Imam Ash-Showkāni, rahimahullah ta'ala, started this section which deals with impurities with the wording fasl. This term fasl is usually translated as chapter. This term fasl is often included in the books of scholars, in the books of the people of knowledge, as an appendix or exception to what preceded it. Since the author, Al-Imam Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah, mentioned in the previous chapter, the chapter on water, that water can be of different types. Some what changes its characteristics, some does not, some is pure and some is purifying. It was appropriate that the next issue that Al-Imam Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah chose to discuss would be to dedicate a chapter or a fasl to explain the impurities. An-Najasat, the term An-Najasat is the plural of An-Najas, which literally means an impurity. An-Najasa or An-Najasat has been defined technically by the people of knowledge as Aynun Mustaqdara Shar'an, that Islamically or in the Shar', An-Najasa is defined as Aynun Mustaqdara. So whenever the term An-Najasa is used by the people of knowledge, whether it's the Muhaddithun, the Ahlul Hadith, or the Fuqaha, it refers to Aynun Mustaqdara, which can be translated into the English language as an object or a thing that is considered to be impure according to the Sharia, according to the Islamic law. Aynun Mustaqdara. Aynun here refers to an object or a thing. Mustaqdira means impure, implying that this object or this thing is considered to be unclean and impure. So this is what the term An-Najasa means in the Sharia and as explained by the people of knowledge. واضح? Are you with me? So far we have covered two terms. Faslun, we'll see this Faslun, which is translated as chapter, what it refers to. And secondly, the word An-Najasat, or which is the plural of An-Najasa. So what does An-Najasa refer to? Or whenever the term An-Najasa, which if you were to pick up a dictionary, it would just refer to as an impurity. An impurity or something that is unclean that me or you may consider, literally. But when An-Najasa fi Shar, in the Sharia, when it is referred to as a term used in the Sharia and as explained by the people of knowledge, it is an impurity, a thing, something like I mentioned, that has been declared as an impurity by the lawgiver, by Allah subhanahu وتعالى. Are we clear so far? So khulasatul kalam, or the conclusion, is that the object in question or the thing in question is Islamically impure according to the Islamic principles. And it is not permissible to touch that impurity except when necessary. So all the najasat, all the impurities that will be mentioned in this chapter are all tangible, all that can be touched. So all these impurities, it is not permissible to make contact with them except when necessary. For example, in order to clean it or remove that impurity. واضح. So far we clear on an-najasa wa najasat, that the ruling of touching this object or thing that is considered to be najasa, that it is not permissible except in the state of necessity. Al-Imam Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah ta'ala, in the previous chapter or in the previous fasl, mentioned the removal of impurity, hadath, is water. So the first thing that Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah decided to discuss was water, which is which removes impurity. As the people of knowledge, they always use this term, رَافِعٌ لِلْحَدَثِ وَمُزِينٌ لِلْخَبَثِ. Water is one that removes the impurity, hadath, and eliminates the physical impurity, which is khabath. So we have two types of impurity so far, hadath and khabath. Hadath is which is not tangible, and khabath is which is tangible. Hadath, for example, if you were to lose your wudu by passing out wind. So if in the first chapter he mentioned. Now Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah ta'ala will begin to mention issues related to the removal of physical impurities, khabath. Khabath, which the water can remove intangible and tangible impurities. So this section is going to be dealing with physical impurities. So the author, he started by saying, what did he say? He said, impurities include human excrement and human urine. So this is what the author mentioned. So the first issue, or al-mas'alatul ula, that is under discussion, our first issue is human excrement and human urine. So the scholar, he said, what did he say? He said, that human excrement or defecation is an impurity in the absolute sense. In the absolute sense. This is what was mentioned. When you look at the translations again, you see that the translators do not understand the intent of the author. So what is the author trying to say? Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah starts the chapter by mentioning the first type of impurity, which is al-gha'it, which is human excrement or defecation, and urine, human urine. He mentions that they are both considered to be impurities. طيب. How did we come to the conclusion that these are impurities? The first translator, he said, in the absolute sense. But what Ash-Showkāni mentioned in the Arabic, he says, فَبِالْأَدِلَّةِ الصَّحِيحَةِ الْمُفِيدَةِ لِلْقَطْعِ بِذَلِكَ. That they are considered to be impure by clear-cut authentic reports. So after mentioning here in the text, he just mentioned that the human urine and excrement are impure in their absolute sense. And then he explained what he meant in the absolute sense. He said that with clear-cut proofs and authentic reports, they have been declared as being impure, as being najas. When he mentioned clear-cut proofs, proofs are of two types. Those proofs which are debatable, and those types of proofs which cannot be debated. There is no room for debate, meaning that they are not speculative, dhanni. So here, after giving the ruling and then presenting the evidence, Ash-Showkāni says, clear-cut proofs are those types of proofs that have reached the level of tawatur. You will be, as students of knowledge, you will be coming across a lot of terms, Arabic terms. Hence, many students, they become scared when they hear a lot of terms. The solution to that is that you need to learn the Arabic language. The deen of Allah cannot be understood except by knowing the Arabic language. And the second thing is that every time you hear a new term, write it down, and inshallah I will explain what that term means. So Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah ta'ala, he gave the ruling that human excrement and urine is considered to be an impurity in its absolute sense, and the evidence to back this ruling is evidence which is undisputed, which is certain evidence which has no room for speculation and debate or discussion. This is the meaning of qat, when you say something which is you can say evidence with certainty, which has no room for doubt or dispute or difference of opinion. And I said to you, what means by certain evidence is tawatur. And what does tawatur mean? Tawatur means that the caliber of this evidence has reached a level of widespread authenticity and certainty which cannot be disputed. That so many people of knowledge have concurred to this ruling that it is impossible for somebody to reject it. It's so certain. Hundreds and thousands of people. As its evidence can be found in the Quran and Sunnah. So the first thing that we have is its ruling. Human excrement and urine is considered to be impure. The evidence that we have is credible evidence, which is certain and undisputed, and there is no difference of opinion about it. The evidence, the degree of evidence has reached such a stage that the scholars have declared this to be an issue of tawatur, that so many scholars of Islam have concurred to this, that it is impossible to call it a lie. For example, there is tawatur that the sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening, that the moon comes out at night. This is all tawatur, meaning that nobody can object to this. It has reached tawatur due to the large number of narrations reported regarding this issue, as well as Quranic evidence. Shawkāni, Imam Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah, did not mention the ayah, but the ayah which declares human excrement and urine to be impure is the ayah from Surah An-Nisa, ayah number 43, where Allah mentions, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu idha qumtum ila as-salah. Though, O you who have believed, do not come anywhere near the salah, or either if you decide to perform salah, and you're not allowed to perform salah if you have relieved yourself. أو جاء أحدكم من الغائط يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة نعم. And that which has been mentioned is if you have relieved yourself. كنتم مرضى على سفر أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط جاء أحدكم منكم من الغائط ولامستم النساء. So the asal of the evidence that ghait, human excrement, is an impurity can be found in the Quran in Surah An-Nisa, ayah number 43. واضح. Are the students following me so far? So we know the methodology of Ash-Showkāni. He gave us the ruling, and then after that he gave us the evidence. He also clarified to us the credibility of the evidence, and we know that the evidence has reached the level of tawatur, that it has been transmitted and reported by so many scholars of Al-Islam as well as normal people that it cannot be disputed. And credible evidence which can be found in the Quran as well as the authentic Sunnah. And many pieces of evidence, not just a single piece of evidence. واضح؟ So far we can say that the human excrement and urine, places of where these substances come out from are considered to be places of impurity. The two places where when a human being relieves himself either due to human excrement or urine, then those two places are places of impurity, and there is a consensus about this issue. And there is no difference of opinion with regards to this. Or that this is khulasatul kalam. The two places where these things come out from are places which have been declared as being places of impurity. Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah ta'ala, at the beginning of this chapter, gave us the Islamic ruling of human excrement and urine. The evidence that he presented is evidence, the way he established this. In other words, let's say that the way Ash-Showkāni established that human excrement and urine is impure, firstly, by referring back to the Book of Allah and then the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the first piece of evidence. We are asked, what is the evidence that al-gha'it wal-bawl, human excrement and urine, and najasa, are impure? Your answer will be precise, where you will say that this is established with authentic evidence, certain evidence, undisputed evidence from the Quran and the authentic Sunnah of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which has reached the level of tawatur. Then Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah established that human excrement and urine are impure with common sense and natural disposition, al-fitr. What he mentioned here is min bab al-darūrat al-dīniyyah. Al-darūrat al-dīniyyah is something which can be known naturally or with common sense. it's unreservedly accepted in the deen, without the need of seeking knowledge. So meaning that any Muslim, regardless of that Muslim having a shallow amount of knowledge, or whether he's illiterate, whether he has very little knowledge about Islam, but this issue will be crystal clear to him that human excrement and urine are impure. Just like the issue of Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one and has no partner or associate in his actions or the devoted actions for him, and in his beautiful names and attributes, is a natural disposition which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created every single human being upon. And this is no Muslim will believe that there is two creators. And Salah is to be performed 5 times a day. This is Al-Durar Al-Bahīyyah. In Bab Al-Durar Al-Bahīyyah, it is something which is known. The intricate details may not be known, but the ruling of Salah, that it should be prayed 5 times a day, is known to all. Just like Hajj and so observing Siyam in the month of Ramadan is an obligation upon every single Muslim. It is known. So Ash-Showkāni is saying that just like those issues which are known with common sense and with the natural disposition of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the human being to know with common sense that human excrement and urine are impure. That's why we don't see anybody that any sane human being, when around excrement and urine, will be content. The fitrah, or the human nature, will make that human being feel uncomfortable regardless of whether he's Muslim or not a Muslim. Is that clear? So that's the second piece of evidence that Ash-Showkāni mentioned, and this is something which nobody disagrees upon. We don't find anybody eating such substances, mistaking them for food. Well, the third piece of evidence that was mentioned by Imam Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah, that the impurity of human excrement and urine is also established by the one who researches or studies or seeks knowledge. That this person will also know that the evidence that can be found with regards to this concludes that human excrement and urine is impure. In other words, what Ash-Showkāni mentioned, that at number 2 he mentioned Al-Durar Al-Bahīyyah, which includes the scholar as well as the ignorant, the layman and the illiterate, the young and the old. And then after that, he mentioned that which may be specifically to a certain group of people, and they are those who are engaged in learning about the deen, seeking knowledge, or have knowledge. They will also know that the evidence, the pieces of evidence that they come across will make it clear The human excrement and urine is impure. Then he mentioned another piece of evidence at, is this number 3 or number 4? What are we at? How many pieces of evidence have we mentioned so far? Now, 3. Finish 3. So this is the 4th. 4th that was mentioned by Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah ta'ala is the way of life during the era of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That when we study the seerah of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we find that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with his practical actions and his noble companions, ridwanullahi alaihim ajma'een, that the way they dealt with these two items or substances or whatever you want to call them, al-gha'itu wal-bawl, that they dealt with them as being impurities. So when we go back and see the condition or the amr of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his noble companions, and then those who followed them in good, we find that all of them without any doubt considered al-bawl wal-gha'it, the human excrement and urine, to be impure. So this is what Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned. He mentioned 4 pieces of evidence or 4 ways of analyzing that human excrement and urine is impure. Then the last issue or the last sentence in this paragraph, Ash-Showkāni mentioned something extremely important, where he said, وَلَا يَقْدَحُ فِي ذَلِكَ التَّخْفِيفُ فِي تَطْهِيرِهِمَا فِي بَعْضِ الْأَحْوَالِ, which the translator of Comprehensive Islamic Jurisprudence translated it as the fact that the two are sometimes regarded as being pure cannot rule out this fact. Now, so this is the last thing that was mentioned. The last thing that was translated, وَلَا يَقْدَحُ فِي ذَلِكَ التَّخْفِيفُ فِي تَطْهِيرِهِمَا فِي بَعْضِ الْأَحْوَالِ, where the translator mentioned that the fact that the two are sometimes regarded as being pure cannot rule out this fact. I did not understand this in the English language. If there is anybody who understands this, that what the translator has translated is because what I understood from the speech of Ash-Showkāni is different to what the translator may be saying. So it's very important for us to understand this last sentence, because this last sentence, as you will see, that if it is not understood correctly, it may cause problems in the issues that may be studied. Now, can anybody explain to me what the translator means or what he has translated? نعم. Anybody? When looking at the translation, another question that needs to be asked to the students: do you understand what the translator is saying? If this last clause of when you read it, when you go back and read the explanation now and the way I've explained it, you will see the text as well as its explanation by Ash-Showkāni in a very different manner, because I have broke down every single word to every single terminology in detail. أليس كذلك? Is there anybody amongst you that can understand what the translator is trying to say, what Ash-Showkāni is trying to say to us? Now you can see the flaws of translations. Naam, can the Qari read the Arabic and then read the English?
Is that the Arabic or the Shokani?
نعم الشوكاني الضراري المضية.
أحسن الله إليكم شيخ. قال الإمام الشوكاني في كتابه الدرر المضية: أما نجاسة بول الآدمي وغائطه
ولا يقدح.
أوكي. أحسن الله إليكم شيخ. ولا يقدح في ذلك التخفيف في تطهيرهما في بعض الأحوال.
Translation.
And the translation, the translator said in the translation, Comprehensive Islamic Jurisprudence, the fact that the two are sometimes regarded as being pure cannot rule out this fact.
What fact? Cannot rule out. What does it mean? What does this mean? هذا هو. No. The first question that needs to be asked is that does the translation make any sense? Does it make any sense? Does it have any connection? Because this last clause or last sentence is connected to everything that has been mentioned so far. But yet, I cannot make heads and tails of what the translator is trying to say. Nor do I understand what he's trying to say in the English language. So I can't have my students going away not understanding what Showkāni was trying to say, because the responsibility falls on my shoulders. And with all respect to the translator, it seems that we had the same problem when we studied the first chapter. Those of you who studied the first chapter with me, can they type 3 so I can see who studied the first chapter with me, who may have come across what certain translations that we had, translation problems that we had in the first chapter. Those who studied the first chapter with me, can they type 3 so I can see how many are present here today? 3, the number 3. نعم. هذه مصيبة. Probably this last sentence is so important that if it is not understood in its correct context, will cause a lot of problems and will be problematic. طيب, you students want to know what Shawkāni is trying to say here? Naam? Does everybody want to know? So that when you go back, you can understand this issue. Ash-Showkāni, rahimahullah ta'ala, is saying that وَلَا يَقْدَحُ فِي ذَلِكَ, which means that due to a concession that has been given by the Sharia in the process of purifying something in certain situations, does not undermine or vilify the fact that that substance is an impurity. Understand? This is what Ash-Showkāni is trying to say. Carefully, listen to me very carefully. We know that human excrement and human urine are both impure. Yes? We know the fact that the impurity can only be removed by cleansing or eliminating that impurity. Yes? Getting rid of that impurity. So far, are we clear? We know that human excrement and human urine are both impurities. We also know that there is a process that needs to be followed and adhered to in order to get rid of these impurities, to clean yourself and you relieve yourself. Yes? Ash-Showkāni is saying that in the Shar, or in the Sharia, due to the fact that the Sharia has given us a concession to get rid of an impurity, meaning that in certain circumstances the Sharia has said that you can get rid of urine like this and it will be impure, and it's a very light way. That does not affect the fact that just because it's done in a very light manner, that urine is not considered to be an impurity. The example will make everything clear. Always examples make everything clear. So we know the hadith of Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhuma in Sahih Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. A Bedouin comes into the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and he urinates inside the masjid. Yes, everybody heard of this hadith? Hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. So when the Bedouin comes inside the masjid and he urinates, obviously the Sahabas become frustrated. The Prophet ﷺ tells them to calm down. The Prophet ﷺ lets the Bedouin finish. He speaks to the Bedouin. He tells the Bedouin that the houses of Allah are not for such places. And then he commands the companions to pour water over the urine. Yes? He says, get water and splash it over where the Bedouin urinated. Now, this process of just putting water over the urine is an easy manner, an easy way, or it's the Prophet ﷺ commanded the Sahabas. He didn't tell them to brush it down or to scrub it down to remove the urine that the Bedouin did in the masjid of Rasulullah ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ gave him a takhfif, a concession. He just said, just put water over it. And by putting water over it, it will become purified. So what Shawkāni is saying that in certain circumstances, and this is one of the circumstances, like the incident of the Bedouin, or like a new baby boy infant Yes, if these drops of urine are on your clothes, you can just sprinkle water over it. So two examples. Shawkāni says, just due to the fact that a concession has been given in such circumstances of how to get rid of that impurity, doesn't negate the fact that the urine is not impure. Do you understand what Shawkāni is trying to say? Is it clear? Just due to a concession of how to eliminate the impurity does not result of that that the urine is no longer an impure substance. Technically or rationally speaking, the way that you would get rid of that urine is you would put soap on it, and you would brush it, and you would do this on it, and you would do that on it. Yes, you can do that. But the Sharia has given a concession. The Sharia says the bare minimum that which you need to do is just put water over it and get rid of it. So you're saying that at-takhfif, which is a concession, in the process of purifying, the concession that is given in the process of purifying that impurity doesn't take away the fact that the substance in itself is impure. So somebody might say, well, you just put water over it. If it was a really impure thing, then you would have to scrub it, like you would have to do this, you would have to do that. But this is the Sharia. The Sharia dominates, not us, not me and you. The Sharia decrees and legislates, not me and you. As far as we're concerned, that urine is, and this is what he said when he said, وَلَا يَقْدَحُ فِي ذَلِكَ, which means that it should not be, that it is not undermined or vilified of it being impure due to a concession in the process of the purification in certain situations. Do you understand? That the al-gha'it wal-bawl, human excrement and urine, and the Islamic ruling is not to be undermined or vilified. That they are impure just because of a concession that can be found in the Sharia, in the process or in the method of how to purify something which may have come in contact with these impurities in certain situations. So this clause of Shawkāni suggests that although there may be some leniency or easing of the rules in specific cases, for example, in the purification process of the Bedouin, it does not diminish the validity or importance of the overall rule that both human excrement and urine are impure. واضح? Is that clear now? Do we understand what Ash-Showkāni is trying to say in the last clause? For those of you who don't understand, then type 3. Now I want you to go back and read what the translator said and see what you have understood. And the example of the Bedouin, of where he urinated and came into contact with the ground, and also a baby boy, a baby infant boy, if his urine, sprinkles of his urine was to come in contact with you, it would be just sufficient for you to clean that with the water. Sprinkle water over it, and you would be informed. These are concessions that does not negate the fact that they are not impure. طيب. Do we understand this? Everybody has understood the last clause, which is very important. The other things I believe are clear. Today's most difficult issue to understand was the last clause of understanding what Ash-Showkāni rahimahullah said. I think the translator has got it completely wrong. I don't think he's an expert who has studied the subject of fiqh with the people of knowledge, wallahu alam, but most translators say conditions as such. Naam. Somebody is asking that is it not only applied to baby girl or baby boy. This issue will come. Maria, this issue will come bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Be patient in the next lessons to come. But at the moment, you know that it's with regards to a baby boy, not a baby girl. طيب. طيب. We'll stop here for today. And if there's any questions with regards to what has been studied, then you may ask.
أحسن الله إليكم Sheikh. A question asks, saying, what is the meaning of ضرورة?
ضرورة means necessity, out of something which is a necessity. Out of necessity, you know that the sky is above you. Nobody will need to tell you that the sky is beneath you or is it above you. You know this. Out of necessity, you know that the sun is above you and the moon is above you. Out of necessity, that you will know the human excrement and urine are not pure. They're impure. واضح? نعم. Necessity here means that you don't need to really think or seek knowledge about it. It's a default thing which is known naturally. So naturally, you know the difference between a male and a female. Now.
أحسن الله إليكم Sheikh. A question asking, أحسن الله إليكم Sheikhana. If one's own drops of urine falls on his clothes, can he just sprinkle water over it to purify it?
Inshallah, these issues will all come. I'm not going to answer any questions because I want you to study all the issues first and then see whether your answers not be answered. So if I'm not answering your question, I'm postponing it till we reach it. Now.
أحسن الله إليكم Sheikh. A question asks, أحسن الله إليكم Sheikh. If a student attends this series of classes lately and missed previous classes, how should he study? Should he continue the current lessons or start from the first class recording and skip current classes?
Now, this is a different chapter, so it's a different topic, it's a different issue. But it would be highly recommended for you to go back to the recordings and listen to and study the first chapter. It will strengthen, and maybe certain things that may be mentioned in the second chapter that may have been mentioned in the first chapter. So it might make things a bit difficult, but if you haven't studied the first chapter, then you can study the second chapter. The second chapter is dealing with impurities, and the first chapter is dealing with the purifier that removes the impurities, water.
أحسن الله إليكم Sheikh. A question asking, أحسن الله إليكم. Does the concession also apply to human excrement or only urine?
The concession is only applied with the text that we have. طيب. And the text that we have two pieces of text that we mentioned. And that is with regards to urine that was done in the Masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, commanded the companions just to put water over it. And with regards to the little baby infant boy. I say boy and not girl. Now. Hey, now.
Thank you.
It's all clear. Has the lesson been understood today? And is it difficult? Is the explanation clear? Let me know so we know how we will be moving on in the next few weeks to come. Now, when you go back, I want you to go back and read what we studied today, read the text and read the explanation, and see after studying with a teacher, have things become clear. And remember that the sentences must be every single a paragraph has sentences which are connected to one another. If they are not connected to one another, don't make sense, then that means there's something wrong with the translation. So the mission has been accomplished today from what I understand. And in our next lesson, we shall go through the pieces of evidence which Ash-Showkāni will bring. So Ash-Showkāni, rahimahullah ta'ala, sometimes brings some technical things, but you don't need to worry about that. Whatever you understand as long as you understand the conclusion of what he's trying to say is the most important thing. So remember that. So there may be other things that are mentioned, technical terms, in terms of principles of hadith, in terms of disparagement, accreditation, narrators, or this and that. If you don't understand that, as long as you understand the khulasa, which is the conclusion of what Showkāni has come to, or what Showkāni is saying, that is the most important thing, which basically would mean either this hadith is sahih or it is dhaif. واضح. نعم. طيب. نعم. طيب. We'll end here then, and inshallah we'll meet you next week for Tadween al-Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Jazakumullah khairan wa baraka feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.